Well, on this episode of MSU Today, we're going to discuss one of the jewels at Michigan State University, and that's the W.J. Beal Botanical Garden and Campus Arboretum, which happens in 2023 to be celebrating its 150th anniversary on the campus. And we're going to do so with the interim director of the garden, Alan Prather, the education director of the garden, Maeve Bassett, and a student who takes advantage of the garden and loves it too is Loren Campbell. So it's great to welcome you all to MSU Today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Alan, why don't we start and introduce yourselves a little more than I did and kind of your role with the garden.
Yeah, sure. So I have been on campus for 25 years. I'm a professor in plant biology, and I've run the MSU Herbarium during all that time. So I have a long connection with plants, of course. I study plant biodiversity for a career. But about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I was asked to be interim director at the garden. So during the last couple of years, that's what I've been doing, is helping lead the garden through some times of change and through this fantastic celebratory year.
And followed the legend Frank Toulousky, right?
Yes, big shoes, and I have tiny feet, but I'm doing my best.
And Maeve, tell us more about you, please.
Yeah, sure. So I'm relatively new to campus as well as Michigan. I've been here since January of 2023, but I'm not new to botanical gardens. I have been working in botanical gardens and museums for about 10 years now, all around my specialty, which is kind of weird. It's called ethnobotany. I come from an anthropological background, studying the relationship between people and plants. So my goal is that anyone that walks into the garden, whether they're a math major, they're a Cold War assassination specialist, I can find some way to get them interested in plants. That's my entire goal. And so I do that. I do a lot of education, and then I'm also helping supervise and mentor the Beal Scholar program as well.
And Loren, tell us about you. What year are you in? Student? Why are you involved with the garden, and how are you?
I am going into my senior year, and I am an entomology student. I'm one of the Beal Scholars. I am a pollination scholar, so it goes hand in hand with me getting my degree in entomology.
So we need those pollinators. You're helping to create or attract more, are you? Or?
Yes, we're making a pollinator garden in the garden, and I have been helping out with that this past summer.
Let's say a little bit more, Alan, about your role as director. What are some of the things you do?
So I think I have the easiest job in the world, Russ. All I do is sit around and enable the brilliant people at Beal to do their jobs. So I think the biggest stuff happening at the garden is related to us moving to the Provost's office about 2 years ago. We were in IPF for a long time, great relationships with that group, and it was a fantastic place to be. But being in the Provost's office, in University Arts and Collections specifically, has given us a stronger focus on academics. So now we can have a tighter, richer role with the scholarship and learning on campus. And so that's kind of the things I've been trying to facilitate.
And Maeve, as education director, talk about some of the programs, who you educate, who it's for, just MSU people or anyone?
Anyone. So one of my goals has been to broaden the scope of who feels welcome and who wants to come to programming at the garden. So along my personal interests, I'm delving into weirder side of plants, darker side of plants, but also working a lot more with university professors, working with plant sciences, who have been using the garden for a long time, but also reaching out a lot more to the social sciences and Lyman Briggs and helping them utilize the garden and the stories of these plants in order to facilitate and get their students excited and actually get them out of the classroom and into the garden. So ranging from music, well-being, history. I did a class on stinging nettles and we made tea, so a little bit of everything.
And Loren, tell me more about the pollinator garden.
It is a new feature to the garden this year. I don't know if you've been to the gardens, but it's on the right side of the staircase.
Okay.
And it's new this summer, but what I'm doing is I am looking at the plants that are in the garden already and already in the pollinator garden that we have placed and seeing how much they are visited by native pollinators. It's really focused on native pollinators instead of honeybees, which is really cool because I feel like a lot of people, when they think of bees, they think honeybees, which are from Europe. They're not native here. And
Did not know that.
yeah. And it's really nice to learn about the bees that come to the garden, what plants they like to visit, when they visit them, what parts of the year.
Yeah, that is cool. So, Alan, we mentioned 1873, the garden first started. A little bit sort of on the history, the beginning, the history, and how the mission is evolving even today.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Russ. That's a great question. One of the really fantastic things about the history of the garden is just the fact that it's tied so tightly to the history of campus, right? From not the very beginning, but pretty close to the very beginning, the garden was established and was situated right in the heart of campus at that time. And it's still, if not the literal heart, at least the figurative heart of campus. We're right along the Red Cedar River. We are right situated between the main library and the IM Circle. Ideal location right across from the sacred space and right across from Beaumont Tower. I couldn't ask for a better location. So part of what we're trying to do this year is honor that history of the garden. If you think about this garden in particular, the legacy goes back even, of course, to pre-campus, because this area was occupied by Native Americans before campus. Our focus on native plants, I think, helps honor that history, but also Beal's history. When Beal established the garden on the south side of the circle, where the main garden is now, he did it expressly to provide a place where native plants could be honored, maintained, and grown for educational enjoyment purposes. He made a comment that during his time growing up in Michigan, he noticed that more and more agriculture was forcing more and more native plants out of their habitats. There was no room left for that to happen, and he felt like if he didn't take action, some of those might be lost. And so he kind of brought a conservation focus to the garden from the very beginning, and that's something we're trying to honor and refocus on by rewilding the garden.
Can we talk a little bit about how you're going to celebrate and honor the garden's 150th anniversary? It's ongoing, but September 13th, tell us about.
Yeah, so September 13th, 3 o'clock, be there, be square. We're looking forward to seeing you there, Russ. We're going to start a whole day full of festivities to celebrate the anniversary. But I'm actually going to pitch that to Maeve, because Maeve's involved in the planning, and she'll be able to tell us more about it.
Great.
Yeah, essentially what we wanted to do is we wanted to create an event that represented all the different ways that people engage with a garden. You can like plants and enjoy the garden for its beauty or its research, but you can also not have a lot of interest in plants and go to the garden just to relax as well. So we kind of created a multi-session event. From 3 to 5 is going to be a lot of the really crazy concentrated events. There's going to be an entire well-being area in Sleepy Hollow, just over the side of the road, and that's going to have therapy dogs, that's going to have different programming, we're going to have history tours by our amazing history scholar, we're going to be having a drawing that includes football game tickets, so hopefully that'll draw some new people in. And we're also going to be planting 150 native plants alongside the Red Cedar Riverbank as part of our restoration efforts, because we really want to let people know and make sure that they know that this is their garden as well, so they can contribute and they can plant and help us with this restoration and development of the garden.
And say more about the restoration project, right? Because I think people can donate if they're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can donate for the restoration of the Red Cedar River. We're doing it all along the entire river.
Wow.
But a lot of our most picturesque,
the coolest ones are staying
the stuff
in
that
Beal.
people see the most is right next to Beal, because that's what we do a tour, and I always have to walk people by and be like, look at all the cool stuff. So people will be able to contribute to that, and then that will kind of wrap up, and then we'll have some remarks. Oh yeah, I forgot, Sparty will be there.
Oh, yeah.
So that's very important. I'm new to Michigan, so I gotta remember the important points. But there's going to be some remarks, there's going to be a commemorative tree planting, and that's going to then turn over into the raffle, and then we're going to end the entire event with a concert by the College of Music. And they have specifically designed a lineup of songs that correlate with different important parts of Beal Botanical Garden's history. So the first song is from 1873, and it goes all the way up. I think the most recent song they're going to play at the end is from 2019. So it's going to be really cool.
And what makes a garden a botanical garden?
Botanical gardens are, this is one of the things that I love and I'm fascinated by, but they've kind of fallen out of people's view. They are a living museum. They're a living collection. They combine a lot of people's passions, but also it's always based off of research. It always has a foundation of research, which has been, since I've moved to this garden as a job, it's been one of the things that I'm most absolutely proud of. From the pollinator garden being all research-based and focused on continuously adapting to make sure it's as effective as possible, to all our well-being programs and making sure those are based off of current horticulture therapy and well-being research. Anything we do, we want to make sure that it has a foundation in science and research, and it's as effective as possible.
The MSU way, yes, for sure. Land grant philosophy. Loren, do you find that is the Beal Garden sort of on the student body's radar? And what would you like to say to your fellow students about the garden?
I think that Beal Gardens is certainly underrated for students that aren't majoring in some of the plant-related sciences or in entomology, because a lot of entomology students go to the gardens to collect bugs and stuff, and it's a really beautiful part of campus. But since it's so far down in between the library, most people sort of pass it by and they don't go there. I feel like hopefully this 150th event will draw more people in and more people will start to appreciate the garden. A lot more students, hopefully.
Especially when they're right there at the library. Then when you need a little study break, come on out to the garden. So, well, what about, I know sustainability is very important for the garden's future. We certainly want to honor the past. What about some both challenges and opportunities moving forward? How do you want to evolve the mission for the next 150 years?
Well, one thing we're trying to do is make the garden both more sustainable, but also a little more inspiring. I like to think we're kind of have an informal mission statement now, which is we illuminate the interconnectedness between people, plants, and place. And all those three things really encapsulate the garden, right? I mean, of course, there's plants there, but they're not just any plants. Of course, there are people there, but of course, it's the very best people, right? And the place of Beal is so special. Those three things can come together in a way that can't happen anyplace else. So we're hoping when we, for instance, model some sustainable practices, that actually will turn into inspiration for people to take our practices and put them out and just make the world a better place, right? That we're looking to activate our public, not just entertain or educate them, but actually we're hoping to change the world through what we can do in the garden. It's an honor to work there, and we want to just highlight that.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask Loren is, has it been weird working in a botanical garden as an entomologist? I think a lot of people think that only botanists, only plant nerds can work at a botanical garden, but how has your experience been in that?
I definitely think it's given me a different experience than most entomology students get, since we go to such a special university and they have the entomology major, which not many do, and we have a beautiful and historic botanical garden. I've gotten to experience both, and they go hand in hand. I mean, you can't have flowers without them being pollinated sometimes by insects, and insects and plants have a really close relationship. They sort of depend on each other. And it's really interesting to see as an entomology major and to talk to the other scholars who are more plant-based about plants and talk to them about insects. And it's been a really cool exchange of ideas.
It's been fascinating to learn from Loren as well, and that's one of the reasons I love botanical gardens is every single discipline out there can have some role in a botanical garden. We currently have a few communications people. We have a dedicated historian. We have a videographer. And I would love to see a math major, marketing. I'd really love to see somebody that thinks they have absolutely no relationship to botanical gardens come in and do something cool, because with the Scholars Program, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with these students. We had about 19 over the summer, the biggest we've ever had. And my role is to help them build out their portfolio. What do they want to learn? What can they accomplish, and how can I help them? So a lot of them are doing projects, and that can be anything. Loren is doing her pollination garden, but one of my education scholars created a scavenger hunt that was completely based off of the Legend of Zelda video games. And you can have students doing everything. We have students all the time out removing invasive plants. And so there's all these different things, and it doesn't just end there. Because of all the expertise in our office, I've been working with a lot of our dedicated botany students or plant sciences or forestry and wildlife to help them with their education. So how do you translate what you're doing to everybody? And so through that is going to then transfer to them finding a job, but also broader implications of letting the entire world know why invasive species removal is important. So it feels like a pleasure to be working with them and then them pushing them out into the world.
Well, the passion you all have for the garden is palpable. I mean, tell me where that comes from. Where does your passion for this work, and particularly the garden, come from?
I've always just grown up loving to be outside, looking at bugs, looking at plants, trying to ID both of them. I've been more successful at the bugs, to say the least. But coming here, and the first time I found the botanical garden, I was just amazed. I'd never seen anything like it. And I thought then, I was like, if there's an opportunity to work here, I would love to. And it's just been amazing. And I've definitely felt the passion of the people that I work with, and it's fueled my passion for the garden. And we're a great team working together to make the garden a better place for people on campus.
I was raised by anthropologists all over the world, but so I started to really get an appreciation for food as something that connects everybody. I always joke that I speak menu in almost every single language, and but it really then translated to plants. And growing up in museums with my parents, I really started to realize that not everybody loved museums as much as I did, whether that's because of elitism, racism, or just not necessarily understanding contemporary art, which is fair. And so I found that botanical gardens were this intermediary where the collections weren't behind a red velvet fence. You could touch them, you could taste them, you could smell them, you could talk about boiling Brussels sprouts and how they smell like farts, and that's completely acceptable in a tour. And so being able to broach this subject, and I always joke that my favorite audience member is the boyfriend who's been dragged along and has no interest in plants whatsoever. If I can get them leaving the tour saying, that was so cool, that was so exciting, then I feel like I've won. And
you win, yes.
It's just a great way to relate to anyone from any background.
So cool. Alan, what about your passion for the garden?
Yeah, my passion for the garden, of course, stems from my love of plants, which, like Maeve, I grew up with, but it's also inspired by my long time here at MSU. I mean, the garden has always been so visible, so important on campus, not just in my 25 years, but for the 150 years it's been here. And to me, it really represents an opportunity to actually make an impact. As a professor, we don't often get to see the change we manifest, but in the garden we can. There's direct, tangible rewards from so much that we do. And being able to work with this fantastic team has given me so much pleasure, mostly because I get to see their successes. So, I'll point to Loren's work. Her work is actually going to guide how we develop the pollinator garden in the future. If we've planted things that aren't working, we'll be able to make a decision. No, let's change that. So, sort of enabling Loren to come to the garden and help us make this garden better has been a fantastic experience. Maeve mentioned our digital storyteller, and he actually is going to be part of an exhibit in the Broad starting in September. On September 8th, there's an exhibit opening about the garden in the lobby of the Broad, and Ethan's video, which has different people telling their relationship with the garden. So we're trying to bring outside voices into our legacy, our history. It's going to be right there in the lobby for people to see. So just watching that happen has made me really proud to be associated with this fantastic group of people.
Yeah, Russell, let me add that one of the things that we're really trying to push is that the garden doesn't have to be a place where you're maybe dragged there by a class. We want this to be a place of joy, of relaxation, of well-being. And so through that, we've kind of taken a few different initiatives. One of our biggest was the Nurture Your Roots, was and is the Nurture Your Roots program. It's an installation throughout the garden where there are different stations by benches that are different grounding techniques, different well-being techniques. So, for example, one may be meditation, but if you're like me and can't sit still for more than 20 seconds, maybe that's not the one for you, but you can move a bench down and there's Pilates or there's poetry. And so we want to make sure that people feel like they can come to the garden to relax and to just be present and enjoy that. One other way to do that, too, is if that's not really your thing, is you can come for a movie. It's so, and I miss the times, I'm not that old, but I still miss the times of going to the drive-in and being able to watch a movie while bats fly overhead. And we want to emulate that. And so every evening and Thursday in September this month, we're going to be having a Screen on the Green, so movie nights. And then we should be having also in October movie nights in the library as well. But that's going to be a little bit of my twist. That's going to be old horror movies where plants are the villains. So I had to get the little bit of weirdness in there, too.
That's right, yes. Well, it's the W.J. Beal Botanical Garden and Campus Arboretum at Michigan State University, a jewel on the campus celebrating 150 years on the campus. September 13th is a day you might want to come and visit the campus. A lot more that we've talked about, and if you want to support the garden or the project along the river, the restoration project, Beal Botanical Garden.msu.edu is the place, bealbotanicalgarden.msu.edu. And thank you all so much for telling us about it today.
Thank you.